When the judge began reading my letter aloud, my daughter-in-law's face turned white, and my son dropped to his knees in open court. I didn't cry. I just straightened my back and waited for silence to finish the sentence for me. That moment changed everything, and it was only the beginning. The church shuttle left me at the curb, its brakes sighing like an old friend. My knees cracked when I stepped down, clutching the grocery tote against my hip. The spring air smelled of cut grass and somebody's barbecue 2 houses away, dogwood petals stuck to my church shoes, soft reminders that time still had gentleness left in it. Calvin built this house 1 paycheck at a time, back when faith and patience were the same thing. I could still hear his laugh in the bricks. "Paper doesn't forget," he used to say whenever he signed a check. As I reached the porch, a new keypad blinked red beside the doorbell. The air changed. Quiet, tense, wrong. I typed my code. The lock chirped twice, then glowed red again. I tried my key. It refused to turn. My heart thumped, not from fear but disbelief. Vera's voice came from behind the door, smooth, practiced. "For safety, Mom, neighborhood's changing." I steadied my tone. Safety usually comes with a heads up. Grant appeared in the hall, hands buried in pockets, his shoulders sloped. "We'll figure it out, Ma." He didn't meet my eyes, Vera said. "We're keeping the place quiet for showings. Decluttering helps." I caught that word. Showings. I asked to set down my groceries, just to rest my knee. She opened the door enough for me to step inside, but not enough to forget who controlled the hinges. The house smelled of lemon cleaner, sharp and new. The couch faced another way. My quilted throw had disappeared, replaced by a sleek gray blanket. A cardboard box near the hall read, "Donate Misc." One of my old church shawls peeked out. The kitchen calendar was wiped clean, my handwriting gone. Even the magnets looked different. No turkey handprint from my grandson. No photo of Calvin at the grill. "If you're rearranging, leave my papers where they were," I said. Grant mumbled, "It's temporary." "Ma, Vera's got a system." I placed my tote on the counter and scanned the counter where the mail tray used to sit. Gone. Bills, receipts, and my quiet order, all erased in one weekend. When I reached the family wall, my breath caught. The frames shone brighter, arranged by color and size. My face was missing, birthdays, weddings, even church picnics, all polished into a story where I never existed. "Now that's a choice," I said evenly. Vera smiled that showroom smile. "We wanted a cleaner story, more cohesive." Grant laughed weakly. "We'll rotate." "Ma?" I tilted my head. "Rotate me back when I'm dead or now?" A fine dust ring circled one empty nail hole. Someone had rushed this job. "Where are my albums?" I asked. "Garage totes," she said. I replied. "Not anymore." My voice stayed calm, but my pulse drummed in my wrists. "I want those albums tonight, and my door code restored," I said. "I'm not a guest here." Vera sighed, leaning on that tone younger women use when they want to sound patient. "Your memory's been inconsistent lately." I smiled. "Honey, I misplaced my glasses, not my rights." Grant's silence filled the hallway thicker than any argument. I reached into my tote, pulled out the folder of bills and property tax receipts. "Old paper," Vera muttered. I laid them on the hall table, the edges squared. My name beside Calvin's. "Paper doesn't forget," I told her. The words hung like gospel. By the baseboard, I noticed a patch of fresh paint, small nail holes, covered fast. I said nothing, just took a photo with my phone. No yelling, no threats. Observation was its own weapon. "Son," I called softly, "I need you to say one true sentence before supper." He looked at the blank calendar. Nothing came. I lifted one picture frame, and behind it, sticky residue marked where my face used to be. "If you're going to erase me," I murmured, "at least keep the wall level. The court likes things straight." At the table, Vera set the good china like a stage, each fork aligned as if she were auditioning for approval. I brought the one thing she couldn't control, my small spiral notebook. The house smelled of lemon oil and roast beef. The hum of the air conditioner filled the quiet between us. Grant adjusted the salt shaker 3 times, eyes fixed anywhere but mine. I placed my notebook beside my water glass. Calm, deliberate. Before we bless the food, I said evenly, I need the door code restored. Vera smiled as if she hadn't heard me. Let's eat while it's hot, she replied, smooth as Teflon. I noted the date and time in my notebook. Every act of silence has a timestamp. Dinner began like a performance. Vera sat at the head of the table, Grant at the other end, and me, side chair, half off the stage. Here, let me cut that for you, she offered, voice syrupy. You remember your doctor said no salt. I smiled slightly. My doctor's been dead 10 years. She blinked, pretended to laugh. Her phone buzzed. She read aloud. Maya says the staging looks amazing. I caught the word again. Staging. I'll be keeping my albums in my room, I said, quiet but firm. Grant tried to joke. Let's not make a federal case. Ma. I looked him square. That's exactly what we won't do if we tell the truth tonight. The meal tasted of politeness, but the aftertaste was control. Then came the story. Your mom forgot cornbread in the oven last week, Vera said to Grant, or pretending to whisper loud enough for me to hear. Smoke alarm and all. He gave a small laugh. I laid my fork down. That alarm chirped because the battery died. I replaced it. Receipts in my notebook. Vera's tone cooled. We all forget things at your age. No shame. I kept my voice even. Forgetting isn't the same as being erased. Her face tightened. New locks are standard now. Seniors get scammed. I met her eyes. So do widows with equity. Grant stared into his plate, the air around him thick with guilt. I wrote, silence recorded, 6:52 p.m. After dinner, I insisted on washing dishes. The warm water steadied me. Grant hovered near the doorway. She's just trying to keep things organized, he said. I rinsed a plate and replied, organizing people out of their homes has a name. He didn't answer. On the counter sat a photo frame turned backward. I lifted it. Calvin and me. Our anniversary. The tape on the back still sticky. I wiped it clean and whispered, stories get rewritten one photo at a time. I jotted another line in my notebook. Control often hides behind care. Vera returned with dessert, her smile sharpened. Doctor. Lawson says cognitive decline can be subtle, she said. Serving pie. He's a friend of a friend. I folded my napkin. Then he can keep his friendship. When did I see him? She blinked. You didn't... He mentioned it generally, I replied. If it isn't on paper, it didn't happen. She turned to Grant. Even Maya noticed your mom repeats stories. I leaned back. Friday, I paid the electric bill, refilled my prescription, and booked pest control online. Receipts are dated. I sipped my water. And I remember the deed still has my name, I asked again, calm as a prayer. Door code restored tonight, albums back in my room, calendar reinstated, Vera said. After the open house Saturday. I nodded once. There is no open house without my consent, Grant whispered. Let's cool off. I am cool, I said. I'm also clear. I wrote 3 bullet points, requests, times, witnesses. The clock ticked so loud it felt like judgment. From the mudroom, Vera's voice carried softly. If we document decline, financing's easier. She'll sign anything. A man's voice replied, Get Lawson's letter. I stepped into the doorway. She turned, startled. I smiled. You don't need a doctor to say I'm fading. A notary will do fine when I say I'm not. Grant appeared behind her, frozen between blood and loyalty. The boy who once picked me dandelions now stood mute. I placed a plain manila envelope on the table. Addressed to Mavis Thorne. Inside, copies of tax receipts and a photo of the stripped wall. Tomorrow, I said evenly. If the code isn't restored and my albums aren't home, this envelope walks... Vera scoffed. You wouldn't... I met her eyes. Baby, I already did. I blessed the food with a short prayer of thanks, then walked out. The notebook, the envelope, and the good china stayed behind. 3 kinds of truth waiting to be read. I woke before sunrise, my knee stiff as old wood, and brewed coffee black enough to match my mood. The door code still hadn't been restored, and my photo albums were somewhere in totes, according to Vera's last text. I didn't bother replying. Some mornings, words are just wasted oxygen. I decided instead to count what's mine. The house felt colder now, the air heavier with someone else's decisions. I took my small spiral notebook from the nightstand and wrote the time, 6:02 a.m. Then I reached into the closet, pulled down the cedar memory box Calvin built with his own hands. Its brass hinge creaked like an old hymn, and the cedar scent rolled out rich and steady. If it's on paper, it's real, I whispered. Inside, beneath folded receipts and our old mortgage note, was a sealed envelope labeled in Calvin's handwriting, for Odessa, if anyone forgets. The blue ink had faded slightly, but his name was bold, Calvin J. Varnell, dated 5 years before he passed. My pulse steadied as I slid a letter opener beneath the flap. Inside were 2 pages, his short codicil, witnessed by Deacons Price and Holcomb, stating that I have full life estate rights to the home until Odessa passes or chooses to sell. The second page was a note in his hand. Paper doesn't forget, people do. I pressed the paper flat, took a photograph beside that morning's newspaper, front and back, for time proof. Then I slipped the originals into a new sleeve, tucked them into a manila folder, and logged every action in my notebook. By 8. I'd already called the church office. The secretary recognized my voice immediately. "Oh, Miss Varnell, yes, both deacons are still with us. Want me to give them your number?" "Please," I said. "Tell them Odessa's got a question about 2017. She laughed. "You still keeping records?" I smiled into the receiver. "Honey, that's how I stay alive." After hanging up, I printed the county deed record from the clerk's website. No transfers listed after Calvin's death. Good. I created a new folder labeled House, Life Estate, Varnell, and wrote in block letters, "Next, witnesses plus notary." The phone buzzed just as I was filing. Voicemail from Dr. Lawson. His voice was warm, too casual. "Miss Varnell. I'd like to schedule a quick memory screen, nothing serious." The call ended with static. I called back. "Doctor," I said, "please confirm your clinic's address and license number." Silence stretched. "Oh, I handle consultations remotely." "Then give me your NPI," he stammered. I hung up. I searched the Virginia Board of Medicine's registry. No Lawson in neurology, geriatrics, or psychiatry. Not one. I printed the screen and stapled it to my notebook. Then I texted Vera. Any medical discussions about me must go through my Medicare portal and my doctor only. I drafted a 1-page note titled Household Clarity Statement. Polite. Firm. No third-party appointments. No house changes without written consent. I taped one copy inside my bedroom door, slid another into my file folder. I emailed Calvin's letter to my own account, CC'd my church friend Loretta for safekeeping. I even sealed a stamped envelope to myself containing the copies, proof through the mail, something any lawyer would recognize. Then I tucked a flash drive under my sweaters and set an alarm to call the notary after lunch. By mid-afternoon, I found Vera arranging tulips in the hallway, her smile all manners and frost. "Please provide Lawson's letterhead and license number by 5, I said evenly. She waved a hand. "It was just a friendly consult. HIPAA isn't a hobby," I replied. Grant passed behind her, eyes flickering between us. "We'll talk tonight, Way," he murmured. "Write it down," I said quietly, "because if paper doesn't show up, I'll assume it doesn't exist." At 4:30, I booked a notary for tomorrow at the UPS store near Barracks Road. The confirmation text came through at 4:41. I prepared a short affidavit draft to pair with Calvin's letter, slid copies into a labeled envelope marked for County Clerk Recording Request. When I placed the memory box back on the shelf, it felt lighter somehow, not from what I took out, but from what I finally knew. I pressed my palm against its lid and whispered, "If they're building a story without me, tomorrow I start filing mine where stories turn into law." I arrived at the bank 5 minutes after the doors opened. The greeter, a young man with dimples, called me Miss Odessa, and I nodded, because names protect you in places where money moves faster than memory. At the teller window, I laid out my ID, a copy of my marriage certificate, and the life estate summary I wrote last night, neat stack, tabs in color order. I'd like 6 months of home equity and property tax escrow activity, I said, voice steady, not sweet. The teller's smile faded when her screen blinked red. That's odd, she murmured. 2 recent transfers to a staging service. I hadn't staged anything except my patients. Print them with transaction IDs, I said, and include initials of whoever processed them. Her fingers shook as she handed me the printouts. Would you like to open a dispute? Yes, I answered. And I'd like it in writing. I thought, if it's on paper, it's real. If it's real, it travels to court. A supervisor led me to a glass cubicle that smelled of toner and nerves. He pulled up my electronic signature card. The O in Odessa had a high loop. Wrong, theatrical, not my handwriting. That doesn't look right, I said. Compare it with the mortgage file? He hesitated, then printed both on one page. My true signature leaned left, small and honest. The forged one strutted like it owned something. I need to dictate a statement, I said. He typed while I spoke, word for word. I did not authorize transfers on these dates. Signature appears forged. Card updated without in-person verification. And when he finished, I requested a fraud case number and a copy of their suspicious activity policy. He obliged. I photographed the screen. Case number visible. Timestamp in the corner. Transparency cuts lies faster than anger. I texted Grant. Fraud case opened. We'll talk, with paper. At a side table near the lobby window. I wrote an affidavit by hand. Dates, accounts, unauthorized drafts. The wrong loop in my O. The notary on duty, a woman with silver bangles, witnessed it, stamped her journal, and handed me a photocopy of the log. You're sharp, she said. I just like my name spelled right. I told her. I attached the affidavit to the dispute packet, stapled a small photo of myself to the copy, an old trick so nobody could say any Odessa would do. I tucked a flash drive of the bank's emailed PDFs into my purse, prayed softly. Lord, let truth stay boring and obvious. From there, I drove to the county clerk's office. The records room smelled of dust and ozone. Certified copies of the deed, life estate, and any liens from the last 90 days, I told the clerk. She flipped through folders, then frowned. There's been an inquiry from a brokerage. Seller prep packet scanned in last week. My pulse didn't rise. I wrote down the broker's license number and the timestamp. Print the user ID, too, I added. The paper fed from the printer with that whispery rhythm that always calmed me. I slipped a copy of Calvin's letter in my folder. Not the will, just a breadcrumb. I texted my friend Mavis. Broker pinged records. Not listed yet. In the parking lot. Sunlight bounced off car roofs like small mirrors. I called the brokerage's compliance desk. Parcel ID ending in 329, I said. Who requested market comps? The woman paused, typing. A household representative. Vera Langford. I smiled thinly. The life estate holder wasn't consulted. Cease all further steps unless I authorize them in writing. She stammered a promise and agreed to send a confirmation email. I logged the call. Time, name, callback number. Then I forwarded the email to Mavis and blind copied Deacon Price. They plan an open house, I murmured. I'll plan an open record. By 11, I sat at my car trunk, sorting everything into 3 envelopes. Bank fraud, county, broker. I signed and dated a memo to file. No adjectives, only facts. I mailed 1 sealed copy to myself for timestamp proof and texted Grant again. Your 1 true sentence is due by dinner. I set tomorrow's notary appointment to add witness forms. My last act was to write in my notebook. No more hallway talk, only tables. When I reached home, the driveway looked tidy, too tidy. Behind the boxwood hedge stood a small plastic sign. Private tour. 2 p.m. I took a photo, date stamped it, and carried it inside like evidence. If they wanted a tour, I thought I'd give them one. With a fraud case number for every room. At 1:58, I set the good china out again. This time as evidence, not decoration. Each plate held a labeled copy. Bank fraud report, deed excerpt, brokerage compliance email. I even slid a small church bulletin beside Calvin's letter. It calmed me. The way gospel hums settle a storm. 2 chairs faced the table, angled neatly for my guests. My spot sat beside the sideboard where my accordion folder rested, spines visible. Nothing hidden. I checked the doorbell cam on my phone. The live view showed the walkway bright and empty. My other phone was on record mode. Timestamp announced. I rehearsed the script softly. Please sign in. Please read. Questions in writing. I texted Mavis. Tour begins at 2 o'clock. Stand by in case of noise. Then I smoothed my blouse and waited. At 2:04, the doorbell chimed. Vera entered first, wearing realtor beige and confidence. Behind her came a stager with a tape measure and a young agent still smelling of school. We'll be quick, Vera said. I smiled. Then please sign the visitor log. For insurance. They hesitated. I placed a pen between them and waited. When they finally scribbled, I slid forward a laminated sheet labeled Household Clarity Note. No medical consults, no vendors, no tours without written consent, initial receipt. Please, the stager frowned. We're just evaluating layout. Then evaluate quietly, I said. Grant lingered by the foyer, jaw set. I turned toward the dining table. Exhibit A, I began, tapping the printout. Bank fraud case number 4382. Exhibit B, parcel research log listing Vera Langford. Exhibit C, deed language, life estate remains active. The stager whispered to Vera. I paused until the whisper ended. Questions in writing, I repeated. No one met my eyes. I walked to the television, opened the doorbell cam app, and cast it to the screen. You'll want to see this, I said. The footage showed Vera crouching by the boxwood hedge at noon, tucking a sign reading, Private Tour, 2 p.m. She shifted in place, color draining. The next clip rolled, yesterday's footage of her loading my photo albums into her SUV. We were decluttering, she blurted. You said you wanted the space fresh. I handed Grant a typed note. Chain of custody, albums, 2 bins, property of Odessa Varnell. My voice stayed calm. Return them by 6 p.m., or I file a theft report. Vera's mouth pinched tight. This is ridiculous. I hit replay. Ridiculous is stealing memories and calling it help. I spoke clearly for the microphone. Subject appears agitated and declines to acknowledge evidence. A sharp knock at the door broke the tension. Mavis stood there, holding an envelope. You'll want these, she said, stepping inside. Inside were printouts from the HOA's group chat, Vera asking for senior transition vendors and a friendly doctor for capacity evaluation. Another line read, plan pre-list before the old gal jams it. I slid the stack across the table to Grant. Is this your household's plan? His throat bobbed, but no sound came. Exhibit F, I said, writing the label on a sticky note. I read one sentence aloud, no rage, just truth. The old gal owns the house. I placed a pen near his hand. Initial for receipt. His fingers twitched, but he didn't sign. I dialed the police non-emergency line on speaker. Requesting a civil standby between 5:45 and 6:15 Hawaiian for property retrieval, I said evenly. Then I read my prepared cease and desist notice aloud. No scheduling vendors, no showings, no medical outreach without my written consent. I gave each of them a signed copy, keeping the original marked with my initials. Vera tried a new tone, soft, pitying. We're only trying to help. Help, I said, is spelled with paper. I texted the PDF to myself and blind copied Deacon Price for record keeping. Then came the moment of silence I'd been expecting. I looked directly at my son. Grant, one true sentence. He rubbed his temple. Let's all calm down. I laid out 3 figures, fraud transfers, staging fees, brokerage requests. Calm isn't the same as silent, I said. Silence is consent. His eyes dropped. Vera squeezed his wrist. I wrote in my notebook, 3:31 p.m., no true sentence given. When they turned to leave, the stager muttered, You'll lose this house. I followed them to the porch. Then the record will say how... My phone buzzed. An email from the bank. Preliminary finding, likely forged signature. SAR initiated. I smiled faintly. If they wanted a sale, I thought, tomorrow they'll learn what a stop sale looks like in court. By 8:45 that morning, I was already at the courthouse, my accordion file thick as a hymn book. Each tab carried proof: fraud drafts, deed pages, screenshots, HOA chat, and the cease and desist copies. The clerk at the window looked young enough to be my granddaughter. "What are we filing today, ma'am?" she asked. "Ex parte relief to prevent dispossession and unauthorized sale," I said. Sliding my ID and the notarized affidavit forward, she checked page counts, stamped the first set, and handed me a pen to initial every exhibit list. My hand stayed steady. I requested file stamp duplicates for the officer scheduled at my house later. When she reached the proposed order, I added, "Include a lease pendens against the parcel, so nobody moves dirt without notice." She nodded. The heavy thunk of the stamp sounded like a heartbeat I could finally trust. Outside, I printed the email that had hit my inbox at 8:09. Preliminary finding consistent with forgery. SR filed, account flagged. I walked 2 blocks to the bank branch. The compliance officer, neat bun and hard eyes, led me to a private room. "You're the only authorized signatory." "Mrs. Varnell," she confirmed, handing me a stamped memo citing federal case code and contact for the Attorney General's office. I took a picture of the paper beside my driver's license and that day's newspaper. The visual chain never lies. "Will this be enough for court?" I asked. "More than enough," she said softly. "It's real." Walking out, I whispered to myself, "Paper talks, paper wins." By late morning, the judge's clerk called from a side hallway. "Judge reviewed your packet. Ma'am, signed the temporary restraining order." She handed me a stamped TRO, show cause hearing for Friday, and the lease pendants receipt confirming the house officially frozen. My name, parcel number, and file date glowed red through the copy ink. No showings, no staging, no doctor outreach. I read aloud. "Yes, ma'am," the clerk said. "Effective immediately." I asked for a deputy posting to avoid misunderstandings. She smiled. "Already approved." I scanned the documents with my phone and sent copies to Pastor Ruth and Mavis Thorne. In my notebook, I wrote, "Orders aren't opinions, they're instructions." At the courthouse cafe, I found a process server chewing on a biscuit. 2 addresses, 2 packets, I said. "Served today?" He stamped the envelope backs with his time seal and went straight to Vera's brokerage. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Photo confirmation, Vera stepping backward, color gone. A second text followed from Grant's office. "Served. Accepted. No statement." I emailed both sets in PDF to their inboxes with the subject line, "Court order in effect. Do not contact providers." Within 10 minutes, Vera replied, "You didn't have to do this." I archived it. The order had already spoken. Around noon, Mavis called. "You need to hear this," she said. The voicemail played through my Bluetooth speaker. Vera's voice came clear, sharp as vinegar. "Judge or no judge? We move her Saturday. Doctor can sign." A male voice followed, Grant's, uneasy. "Risky if she recorded us." Vera again. "She won't fight once she's in." I wrote the transcript line by line, attached the audio to the case email as Exhibit H, and texted Grant, "You're on this recording. You still have a choice." His reply came fast. "I'm so sorry. I didn't answer. Sorry isn't a boundary. I wrote in my notebook. Orders are boundaries." By early afternoon, I was back home. The officer from the morning call arrived and taped the TRO to my glass door. Seal glinting under the noon sun. We went over the retrieval plan for my photo albums. Between 5:45 and 6:15, I printed a return receipt for their signatures and space for license plate numbers. I reset the dining table. Exhibit 1, Exhibit J, Exhibit H, lined in order like communion pieces. I brewed tea, breathed once, and said aloud to the quiet house, "Questions in writing." When the deputy stepped back from the door, his shadow crossed my reflection on the glass. Down the street, a black SUV idled, the same one from yesterday's footage. They didn't get out. They just sat, reading the paper I'd forced into the sunlight. Then the engine turned, and they rolled away. Tomorrow, I thought, they won't be reading. They'll be standing when the clerk calls my case. The bailiff called, "All rise!" The sound of chairs scraping across the polished floor felt like thunder inside a chapel. Lemon oil drifted through the room. Sunlight caught the brass edge of the judge's bench. I stood straight, hands folded, hearing my pulse in that hush. Judge Keating entered, robes sweeping, presence heavy as the law itself. Across the aisle, Vera sat in a gray suit that tried too hard to look calm. Grant took the front row beside counsel, his gaze nailed to the table. My attorney leaned toward me, whispering, "Just breathe." The clerk began reading exhibits into the record. Exhibit H, the voicemail recording. Exhibit 1, the bank compliance memo. Exhibit J, proof of service. And under seal, the letter. The defense raised an objection. Foundation unclear. The judge barely looked up. The file speaks for itself. I learned long ago that in Virginia, you don't win by shouting, you win by having every paper in order. The judge lifted the sealed envelope, broke it carefully, and said, "I'll read relevant portions for clarity." My handwriting appeared on the monitor. She began. On May 6th, my doorbell camera recorded an attempted lock change. A ripple went through the gallery. Vera's head lowered. Next line. Unauthorized brokerage listing drafted without owner consent. The judge looked directly at her. "Mrs. Langford, are you a licensed broker?" Vera's attorney jumped in, voice tight. "Objection to relevance. Overruled," the judge said. She continued reading. "I am not asking for pity. I am asserting title, dignity, and quiet possession." My throat tightened, but my face stayed still. My mother's words came to mind. "If you can't lift your voice, lift your paperwork. Today. I brought both." The judge nodded to the clerk. "Play Exhibit H." The recording filled the courtroom, Vera's voice sharp and certain. "Judge or no judge, we move her Saturday. Doctor can sign." People turned toward her. The color left her cheeks. Then the next voice. Quiet but unmistakable. "Grant's. Risky if she recorded us?" The judge froze the playback. "Counsel, is that your client?" Silence. "Failure to deny will be taken as acknowledgement," she said coolly. She admitted Exhibit A1, the bank memo confirming forged signatures and a federal report. Defense tried hearsay, but the judge pointed to the sworn declaration stapled inside. "Motion denied," she said. Grant's shoulders slumped. His face was a mix of fear and shame. "Any further interference with medical or real estate documents will result in contempt," the judge warned. Defense shifted tactics. "Mrs. Varnell, perhaps you're mistaken about these transactions?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I am mistaken about many things in life, sir, but not arithmetic." I named the dates, the check numbers, the initials forged. "And where were you when this mobile notary appeared at my door?" I held up my ledger, every entry neat. "This little book holds every service call since 2012. You can check it." The judge leaned forward, impressed. "Counsel," she said, "you're arguing against a witness who kept better records than your own client." The room chuckled softly, but I didn't. My calm had edges. Judge Keating spoke clearly into the mic. "Temporary restraining order extended, no contact except through counsel. Immediate return of personal property under deputy supervision." Her pen scratched across the order pad. "Exclusive possession granted to Mrs. Varnell. Any violation will be treated as interference." The clerk handed her the next form. "Lis pendens remains active. Brokerage to confirm compliance by 5 p.m." The heat inside me lifted, replaced by something cleaner. Justice. Maybe. Or relief shaped like steel. Then the judge looked at Grant. "You're the biological son, correct?" He stood slowly. "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you wish to be heard?" His voice cracked. "I thought I was helping. Is that your voice on Exhibit H?" He nodded once. Then again, smaller, his knees bent. The sound of them hitting the tile echoed. He whispered, "Yes, ma'am." A hush fell. He turned toward me, eyes wet. "Mom, I'm sorry." I didn't move. My hands rested flat on the table. Love didn't mean stepping forward. Sometimes love meant staying still and letting the truth land where it must. The judge turned to Vera. Any further contact outside proper petition channels will trigger sanctions. The courtroom murmured as she signed the order. The clerk posted it on the hall bulletin board. I saw people reading it later, whispering. She tried to put her own mother-in-law out. That kind of echo lasts longer than a sentence. Consequence has its own quiet voice. Outside, Grant approached. "Mom, what do I do?" he asked softly. "You start by telling the truth to the same people you lied to." I said. He nodded. "Can I hug you?" "Not today," I answered. "Come back with the truth in writing." Compassion doesn't mean a soft gate. It means a clear one. A deputy stepped over, handing a new folder marked with the state crest. Vera's phone buzzed. She answered despite the posted sign. The bailiff lifted his hand and she froze mid-sentence. The prosecutor's aide whispered to the judge, "Potential criminal exposure tied to Exhibit 1. I watched the seal glint under the lights and thought, I only asked for safety and dignity. The law heard me. Now it will speak to her. Judge Keating returned with the sealed folder. The kind that makes a room forget how to breathe. She set it down, adjusted her glasses, and said, "We are expanding this record to include a criminal referral." The clerk began reading docket numbers. Elder exploitation inquiry. Evidentiary hearing within 30 days. The hum of the air conditioner filled every pause. My mouth was dry, but I held steady, remembering Mama's saying, "Calm as a witness." The defense tried to object, arguing to narrow the scope, but the judge shook her head. The overlap with Exhibit 1 is already proven. The air felt heavier, but my chest lighter. What they once called a family misunderstanding now had a case number, stamped in black ink. Then came the final orders, one by one. Protective order, valid for 1 year. The judge read. Violation will result in immediate custody. I nodded, steady. Exclusive possession of the residence remains with Mrs. Varnell, sheriff escort authorized for any retrievals. She added restitution escrow, contested funds held in a neutral account pending full audit, and directed the bank to cooperate under subpoena. Vera's brokerage faced an ethics review and a compliance affidavit due by 5. I took quiet notes like any homeowner would. New locks, P.O. box, credit freeze, utilities flagged for security. Older women watching this would understand. When the paper protects you, the fear stops sleeping in your bed. When it was my turn, I stood. "Your Honor, I'm not asking for punishment," I said, and voice calm. "I want safety, quiet possession, and the right to be believed." I declined the word victim, I said. "I'm a homeowner, a taxpayer, a choir mother. I ask that my son's counseling and restitution plan be acknowledged in the minutes." The judge nodded. The court notes restorative efforts are encouraged, not substitutes for accountability. I didn't look at Vera. Some boundaries aren't announced. They're drawn by where your eyes won't go. The next order hit harder than the gavel. "Mrs. Langford," the judge said, "you are to appear for a contempt hearing in 2 weeks. Any further violation will impact licensure." Vera's lawyer muttered something about miscommunication, but the bailiff interrupted, handing her a confiscation bag. Her phone had buzzed again during session. The gallery whispered as if in church. She tried to put her mother-in-law out, and right there, her power deflated, not with shouting, but with silence. Before leaving the bench, I asked to lodge a notice. "Odessa Varnell Living Trust," I said, holding up a folder with a gold seal. "Executed last week, recorded this morning. I retain a life estate. The remainder goes to a community music fund." The judge's eyebrows lifted. "Notice to parties." I handed certified mail receipts. Vera's lawyer blinked, realizing what it meant. The house, my house, was now untouchable. "Stop fighting over what was never yours," I said softly. I didn't say it with cruelty, just truth. For older viewers, it's the quiet kind of revenge, the kind notarized by law. Grant approached the clerk's table and signed his affidavit. "I'll attend counseling," he said, "and I'll write to the court. And to me," I added, "once a month. By letter, no doorstep visits." He asked, "Will you ever forgive me?" I answered. "Do the work and let time speak." He nodded, hands trembling. but I didn't move to hold them. My compassion has a gate, and today, it stayed closed. By 5 o'clock, I was home. The deputy stood by as the locksmith changed every cylinder. I labeled new keys, filed the receipts in my ledger, then walked to the porch. Church teens had left a wooden bench engraved for my late husband. Every note finds its rest. I sat there, hearing cicadas, feeling the house breathe steady again. Neighbors stopped by with casseroles. I thanked them and handed out flyers. How to freeze credit, how to spot a forged deed. Education is inheritance. 2. As the sun lowered, a courier brought a letter from the bank's compliance division. It mentioned a broader ring of fraudulent drafts under investigation. One line wasn't redacted. Your cooperation protected other seniors. I called Pastor Ruth. Add elder protection to Sunday's bulletin, I told her. Before hanging up, I looked at the porch light flicker on. Power isn't loud, I said to myself. Power is a door that stays closed because you filed the hinge. Then the phone rang again. Bank caller ID, official tone, Mrs. Varnell, the voice said. We'd like you to testify before a grand jury. I looked at the house, the porch, the bench that bore his name, and smiled. I'll come, I said, and this time, I won't be coming alone. As the courthouse lights dimmed, I placed the subpoena beside my ledger and whispered, full circle. Outside, a black SUV idled again. Same plate, same pause. The phone buzzed once more, this time with an unknown number and one line of text. We know about the trust, and the screen fades to black.